Good morning, children. Today we are going to see the lesson number 11. Continue the lesson history. Kumaragupta and Sekandargupta. Chandragupta's second son, Kumaragupta, succeeded him. The Gupta Empire had reached its end by his time. His son, Sekandargupta, succeeded him and checked the invasion of the Huns who poured into the western and central India soon after he came to the throne. Therefore, some scholars call him the savior of India. He was the last great Gupta ruler. After his death, the empire slowly declined due to weak successors. By 525 CE, the Gupta dynasty had almost come to an end. The Huns. The Huns were a barbaric tribe from Central Asia who became very powerful towards the middle of 5th century CE. Hearing about the wealth of the Indian subordinate, the Huns invaded several times. The first invasion took place in 458 CE. Although the Sekandargupta repulsed the attack, their continuous attacks weakened the Gupta army, and finally the Huns wrested Punjab and Kashmir from the Guptas. They remained the power for about 100 years and then their power declined. Many Huns settled down in India permanently and gradually became a part of Indian society. Gupta administration. The Gupta kings were powerful and ruled according to the Dharma or the law of the land, which was the form of Dharma Shastras. These were compiled by learned the Brahmins. As the Gupta Empire was too large to be governed directly from one center, the administration was declined. For the administrative efficiency, the empire was divided into various parts. Then, the domain and under the supervision of empire, Raja, king, Samrat, assisted by council of ministers. Second one, the province, the governors of province, and district heads, other officials. Fourth one, village head. Okay, now we are going to see the next in the urban areas of council, consisting and representative of merchant guides and the craft girls took care of the administration. Under the later Gupta kings, the system of paying scholars salaries to the officials in cash was changed. They were now given land grants and the right to collect and revenue from the land. They changed the salary system. Then, which was the equivalent to the salaries? Since the successors Chandragupta II were weak, some of the governors of the distant provinces behaved like rulers, and when the Gupta Empire broke up, they declared their independence. Law and order. The main law and order, there was a body of civil police, an official called the Mahananda Akya assisted the king. Justice was given in accordance with the law of Mansmurti. The punishments were generally mild, even for him maintenance this fact in this writing. So law and rule was given the officials, and they were made the new law. Then next one is just see life of the people. Life of the people society. Farkin speaks in glowing terms about society during the time of the Guptas. Fahim was used the terms. However, he mentions the caste system too, which had become rigid and the practice of untouchability was widely prevalent. The Chandals who did the lowly work and lived outside the towns and villages were considered impure. The conditions of women decorated as many restrictions were imposed on them. They were not allowed to receive education, nor were they allowed the participate in any social and political activities. Child marriage and sati were also practiced. Agriculture was the main occupation, and so most people lived in village. Gupta's time, their lifestyle they were saying the agriculture was the main occupation, child marriage and sati was practiced, and most of the people lived in village. Then religion. Guptas were mostly Vaishnavas or worshippers and Vishnu, the preserver of the universe. Everyone, including women and Shudras, were allowed to worship him. Many people also worshipped Shiva. And the rules performed elaborate rites and rituals, including the Ashwamedha Yajna. The rules for these celebrations and other rituals and ceremonies were framed by the Brahmins and were compiled in the Dharma Shastras. The concept of the bhakti or personal devotion to God without rituals or ceremonies began to gain ground during this time. The Gupta rulers continued to be tolerant towards Buddhism and Jainism. Samudragupta even allowed the Sri Lankan ruler Mahavarun to construct the monastery of Buddha Gaya. Then trade. During the Gupta period, both internal and external trade flourished. The chief port of the east was in Tamravati, which handled trade with the southeast Assam countries like Manur and the Java, the Cambodia, Borach and Sopra. Kalyan ports located on the west coast handled trade with West Asian countries like Afghanistan, Arabia and Iran. This also led to the widespread cultural exchange. For instance of the influence of this Sanskrit language, agriculture and religion on time Southeast Asian countries can be seen even today. Overhand trade linked India to Central Asia and China, but this was discredited due to the human version of India. The main items of export were spices, precious stones, textiles, and sandalwood, indigo, herbs, and ivory, while the main items of the important was gold. The Gupta rulers constructed the new network of roads which connected important cities like Ujjain, Pataliputra, Prayag, and Varanasi. Internal trade flourished as roads were safe and rest houses were also constructed for the comfort of the travelers. Rivers were also used for the transportation. Various industries like weaving, carpentry, metallurgy, and pottery flourished. However, with the decline of the Gupta rule, trade also began to decline. Then, literature. How was their literature? Sanskrit was the court language of the Gupta king. Some of the great treasures of the Sanskrit literature were composed during this period. The Gupta rulers themselves were accomplished scholars, and their courts were adorned and with talented scholars and artists. The Kalidasa was the greatest game of the court of the Chandragupta. His works include the famous play, the Abhijini Guddalam, and the epic poem Meghadatta. Harisna was the court poet of the Samudragupta and spoke of the achievement of Samudragupta. Pandit Vishnu Sharma wrote the Panchatantra, a collection of the fables. Probably the two epics and Ramayana and Mahabharata were given their final form under the Guptas. The Bhagavad Gita was also combined to the Purnas. Two were given their final shape during this age. Drama, poetry, and prose reached their zenith under the Guptas. The greatest work of the Sanskrit grammar, Paninis and Asthashastras, was written during this period. Art and agriculture. The great countries of centuries of art were located in the Mathura, Varanasi, and Pataliputra. The Vishnu temple at the Doha and the brick temple and the Bihar are the great spices of the Samarth school of art. The Gandhara and Madhura schools of art attained the peak of the development. The seated image of Buddha from Saranath and the standing Buddha from Madhura show the high level of the perfection in the field of sepulchre. The art of the painting reached the zenith of its splendor under the Guptas, as it is the event from the cave painting and wall focuses and Ajanta caves of the Maharashtra. So read the lesson carefully. Okay, simple things only, but when you read, then only you will get some idea about the Chandraguptas and Maurya Empire.